Welcome to the Parenting Successful Teens, the podcast that cuts through the overwhelm and stress of this phase and offers parents simple, practical, cognitive, science-based strategies for keeping their teens on track. Join Master Coach and real-life mom, Allie Irwin, to talk about real teens, real problems, and the skills it takes to raise successful adults.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. This week's podcast is inspired by a piece of advice that I have been seeing all over the internet. You know, it's right around that New Year's resolution time, and so there's a lot of inspirational quotes. And one of the pieces of advice that you see tossed around is to get out of your comfort zone. You see things like, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so while I was driving my daughter back to school, I was asking her if this is something that she hears a lot in college. At college, she said, I've been hearing that since I came out of the womb. It's like, you had a very productive 9 months in there. Now keep up the hard work. It's important not to lose momentum. She went on to say, she actually had a lot to say about this, that she doesn't want to get out of her comfort zone. She wants to expand her comfort zone, not leave it. She said, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I just want to broaden my horizons. And whenever I think about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think of a cheesy poster with a kitten on it. I don't want to think about being uncomfortable. I just want to think about it as trying things. And I think she's got a good point. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable, but we do want to try new things and expand our horizons. We do value growth because growth keeps our life interesting. So with that in mind, I've got some ways to make leaving your comfort zone easier. I've got 8 ways actually, which is kind of a lot. So just take what works for you and know that you can listen to this podcast multiple times. So try a few things out and then come back and listen another time and try a couple of other things out. I want you to experiment until you find ways to make leaving your comfort zone or expanding your comfort zone easier. Okay, and to do this, I want to start by changing the way you think about comfort zones. Most people think that you're either inside your comfort zone or outside it, like there's only 2 zones. But today I'm going to explain a better way to look at comfort zones. And what I want you to do is start with picturing your house. Inside your house is inside your comfort zone. And outside your house is outside your comfort zone. Okay, that's the standard way that most people think about it. It's binary. You're either inside or you're outside. You're either comfortable or you're not. And the problem with that explanation is that it assumes that our house is in a sketchy neighborhood. It assumes that when you're in your house, you're feeling safe and happy and secure. But the minute you go outside, you're going to find a bunch of broken glass and used needles. At least that's what our brain tells us. Comfort zone feels great, and outside the comfort zone feels terrible and we'll probably get mugged. But that's not actually true, because what most people think of as a general outside is actually a couple of different neighborhoods. The first neighborhood outside your house is probably pretty familiar, but just a little farther out is a new neighborhood, and this neighborhood feels kind of familiar and kind of exciting. This is the neighborhood where you're challenged, but you think you can manage it. There's a couple of new restaurants. There's maybe some beautiful houses that you haven't seen. Maybe there's a park. You feel excited mixed with a little bit of uncertainty. And this neighborhood is called the growth zone. Okay, you don't quite know your way around, but you're curious and you're excited. And the more time you spend here, the more familiar it gets. And you can keep expanding and exploring the growth zone. And the more you do, the more it becomes part of your comfort zone. But then there's another neighborhood past that. And if you leave your house too quickly without a map, you can sometimes end up in this neighborhood, and this neighborhood we'll call the panic zone. Okay, the panic zone is what feels like a sketchy neighborhood to us. Okay, it's too unfamiliar. You're too far from your comfort zone. You're too far from your house. And this is the neighborhood that feels like it's filled with dark alleys and a high crime rate. Feels chaotic, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're lost and overwhelmed and worried something terrible is about to happen. And this may sound overly dramatic, but our caveman brains really do get in fight or flight mode. And if you remember back to that first episode, you'll remember there's a whole rush of chemicals flooding our brains when we go into fight or flight mode. We think the new things we run into in the panic zone are going to hurt us. And this is the neighborhood that people are afraid of when they think of doing something new. Okay, it's not actually the growth zone. What they're afraid of is ending up in the panic zone. And because the panic zone feels so terrible, people choose to stay in their comfort zone. Okay, this is why people choose to stay in their house. People don't talk about the difference between the learning zone neighborhood and the panic zone neighborhood. A lot of people mix them together, and that causes a lot of unnecessary suffering, a lot of unnecessary hiding in your house. And what happens if you hide in your house is that it doesn't actually stay your comfort zone. It becomes your stuck zone. If you're hiding in your house because you're afraid of wandering into a bad neighborhood, then you're staying inside because of fear. And the longer you stay inside, the more the idea of going outside causes fear. So the longer you stay inside, the worse going outside starts to feel, and the worse staying inside starts to feel, because now you're starting to feel fear even when you're inside your comfort zone. So as a way to manage that, your comfort zone actually gets smaller. So what used to be a house is now shrinking. And in this new, smaller space, you start to get a little version of cabin fever. You start to get bored. And if you've been on Facebook at all recently and noticed people screaming at each other, it's because those are the people that have spent too long inside their comfort zone. One of the hallmarks of spending too much time in a shrinking comfort zone is that you get overly convinced of your own opinions. And you become more fearful of opinions that challenge yours because you're already feeling fearful. It becomes more and more important to focus on the minutia because you're more and more focused on your shrinking comfort zone. So your comfort zone has actually shrunk down, and now it's your stuck zone. So the question becomes, what do we do about this? How do we get out of our comfort zone or reverse a shrinking comfort zone and get out in the world doing the things that will give us the cool life we want without landing us in the panic zone? The first step is to know what zone you're in. And the way that we do that is by noticing how we feel, because each one of these zones feels a little bit different, and we can tell where we are by how we feel. We have like an internal GPS. The stuck zone feels numb, bored, or fearful. The comfort zone feels like home. You feel confident and safe. The growth zone feels like excitement, curiosity. Sometimes you might feel a little scared, but it's mixed with excitement. The panic zone feels like an emergency, feels overwhelming and slightly dangerous. So ideally, we're toggling between our comfort zone and our growth zone. We're staying out of the stuck zone altogether, and we're knowing what to do when we wander into the panic zone. Okay, the panic zone is the reason that people avoid the growth zone. And it's also the reason that the comfort zone becomes the stuck zone. So all of my suggestions today are going to be focused on helping you stay out of the panic zone, recognizing when you're in there, and knowing how to handle it. Because if you're confident that you can handle it, if you get into the panic zone, then you're going to feel a lot more comfortable trying new things. So the first suggestion is to recognize what zone you're in and to toggle between the comfort zone and the growth zone. The second suggestion is to try smaller steps. When you're trying something new, instead of taking a huge first step, which is what most people do, try breaking that down into smaller steps. And actually, most people would be served if they took that small step and broke it in half again. And if need be, in half again, until that first step feels almost within your comfort zone. Okay, you want that first step to feel really comfortable so that you start to get some momentum. So let me give you a real life example. So my husband and I are going to take dancing lessons this winter. And we aren't bad dancers, but we're not great dancers. So this might involve a little bit of public humiliation. So a great small step for us is signing up for a class. But really, in order to get ourselves to do that, we broke that in half again. And so our first step was just to look for studios that offer adult dance classes. And then the next tiny step was to look up class schedules. And then the next tiny step was to pick a dance style salsa and a class time that worked with our schedules. And it was so easy to do this that before you know it, we were signed up for our first class. My third suggestion is to remember that it's our thoughts that are causing our anxiety. Okay, it's our thinking. Our feelings come from our thinking. And so if we're feeling anxiety, we're thinking thoughts that are causing that anxiety. And so what we need to do is identify what those thoughts are and then choose to change them. So in my dance class example, perhaps if I had put that off, I would be thinking about people staring at us and laughing. I could be imagining feeling embarrassed or being judged. But all of that would be happening inside my head. I would be creating those feelings of embarrassment, not by what they're thinking, but by what I'm thinking about them. Okay? And their thoughts don't have any actual control over me. Only my thoughts do. So even if I go to class and they judge me, it's only when I care about their opinion that it becomes a problem. If I'm thinking things like, I'm just here for a fun date night with my husband, who cares if I'm good, then I'm going to have a good time. All I have to do is find the thoughts that take me out of the panic zone and back into the growth zone. And knowing I can do that I have that skill, will make me a lot more comfortable trying things. In fact, that's the reason that the take small steps suggestion works, is because it's easier to think positive thoughts about smaller steps. Your brain throws up less resistance, and so you get more forward momentum. So the easiest way to stay in the growth zone is to combine suggestion 2, take small steps, with the third suggestion, manage your thinking. That's how you get the most bang for the buck. My fourth suggestion is to remember that negative emotions don't actually hurt us. We can feel shame or embarrassment or disappointment, and it will pass. We won't like it, but it won't hurt us. And knowing that all emotions are just vibrations in our body, they don't have actual power over us, gives you freedom. You can stop avoiding the thing that might cause you a negative emotion, because even if it does, you know that you can handle it. Take that in for a moment, because that's pretty huge. You won't actually die from embarrassment. And remember that feeling embarrassment is caused by our thinking that we're doing something embarrassing, and that thinking is under our control. We can change our thinking. Okay, so suggestions 3 and 4 kind of go together. Our thoughts are caused by our emotions, and our emotions won't hurt us. And if we want to change those emotions, we can change our thinking. The fifth suggestion I have is to pay attention to your physical comfort. Most of what we're being asked to do these days takes us out of our comfort zone for mental reasons. We spend so much time in our heads that we almost forget about paying attention to our physical needs. And those needs don't go away just because we ignore them. And by needs, I'm talking about things like being hungry or tired or thirsty or having to go to the bathroom or needing to wear more comfortable shoes. Sometimes we inadvertently are both mentally uncomfortable because we're managing our thinking and physically uncomfortable because we're wearing terrible shoes. So we put ourselves in both of those kinds of discomfort at the same time, and that can be enough to tip the scales from the growth zone to the panic zone. We've all had this experience where we've had to wait through a long meeting to give our presentation, and where the presentation might have started out in the growth zone, by the time we give it, after sitting for an hour with our nerves going and shoes that rub and a slightly too full bladder, now we're starting to feel panicky. Okay, so paying attention to your physical comfort while you're doing new things can help you stay in the growth zone. Suggestion number 6 is to know what the benefits are of what you're trying to do. Make a mental list so that you can remind yourself when you get nervous and are tempted to chicken out. Number 7, make getting out of your comfort zone a habit. Look for ways to expand your comfort zone in small ways. Okay, these are just outside your comfort zone, but you do them regularly. So take a new route to work, get coffee at a new cafe, order something you've never tried for lunch, go to lunch with different people, take a different class at the gym. Build up evidence that you can be outside your comfort zone and be okay. Build it up like a muscle. Build up a tolerance for being slightly uncomfortable. And that will really come in handy because you'll know that you can do it when bigger risks come along. Okay, you'll have more evidence, more experience exploring that growth zone. Suggestion number 8 is to get some support. Asking a friend to come along with you can make it easier to do new things, and in the process, it can help build the friendship. Ooh, bonus suggestion. Have someone keep you accountable for pushing yourself outside your comfort zone so that you don't chicken out when you get the urge. And also, have someone help you strategize ways to make it easier and more fun. That someone could be your BFF, it could be your sister, a neighbor, or it could be me. I would love to talk to you about your goals for your family, what you're dreaming of for your kids' future and for yours. Together, we can make a plan for getting there, and I'll hold you accountable. You don't want to look back at their teen years and wish that you had done things differently or not put things off. Comfort matters, but if we only do things we feel comfortable with, we're going to get bored. We won't grow. We'll have less fun, and over time, our lives will get smaller. And here's the truth. The people that suffer the most when their kids leave for college are the parents who have stopped growing their own lives. So the ultimate comfort comes from knowing that we can handle the discomfort that comes from growth. And in that way, we actually do get comfortable with our own discomfort, knowing that we can get ourselves out of the panic zone and spend our time expanding our comfort zone with new experiences. All right, that's what I've got for you this week. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what your goals are and how you're challenging yourself to step out of your comfort zone. Tell me what you're up to and which suggestion you're going to try. You can reach me at Allie@allieirwin.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to Parenting Successful Teens. If you enjoyed today's show, please head over to allieirwin.com/talk, where you'll find a free guide that teaches you 5 different ways to get your teenagers to tell you about their day. Grab the guide and start having better conversations today.